It's like, in order to fix the problem, do you actually know where the problem stems from? When you do, that's when you can make actual change, because it goes a lot deeper than saying, I'm going to hire a Black person. It's like way, way deeper than that.
There is no difference to the trickle-down racism, the trickle-down problems that Black people face in the circus or in the aerial world, because what it comes down to is the individual person backing that system.
Hi, I'm Noelle, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're talking to Gina DuBose and Joe Pinzon about owning their own companies in America. Gina is the founder of Soar Aerial Dance, and Joe is the producer of Short Round Productions. You'll want to stay to the end to find out Joe's response to one judge's critique on how his show Filament wasn't diverse enough, and you'll want to hear about the new creations that are brewing from these brilliant artists, and also how they want to see change enacted within the circus industry. And if you're new here, I dropped out of physical therapy school to become a circus performer. And if you want to see circus-related content, please subscribe and ring that bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is how change can be made.
People have to change their biases. They have to recognize their biases and then change their biases and learn and educate themselves, because that is going to trickle down in who you hire, what your staff looks like, and what your students look like, what you offer, what communities you reach out to. Black people are not gonna go to an all-white studio, and we're talking about as a whole, not one Black person, not like, oh, there's this one Black person that trains at my aerial studio. We're not talking about the one or the two. We're talking about as a whole, as a collective, right? We as a collective are not just going to go to a white person's studio if we don't see ourselves represented in that studio. That's just not what we're going to do. Why subject ourselves to even more racism and more bias and more classism? We're not going to do that, you know?
It takes time to realize and admit that there's a disparity. That's not an easy thing to say, because you want to believe in the integrity of your art form, and you want to believe that the thing that you've dedicated your life to is doing the right thing. But sometimes it's worth putting that pride aside to look at what's really going on. And it doesn't mean that your art form's gonna suck, or your company sucks, or you're bad people. It's not that at all. But it says a lot if you actually take the time to reflect upon those things. Because if you really believe in your art form, it should say the things that should be said, and not the things that just you want to say.
Neither of these artists met the look that companies are looking for, so they created their own. If you would like to hear more about Joe and his experiences and why he created his company, please go check out Circus Talk's Wake Up Call for Inclusion series. He's in the first panel discussion along with me. And I'll leave a link to the video down below in the description box so that you can go check it out after you're done watching this video. And here's Gina on why she created her company.
That was the only way that I could do what I wanted, and the only way that I could present myself in a manner that represented who I was as an artist. So I started my own company after 7 years of being here in this area and constantly getting turned down from performances and getting turned down from being included, from getting turned down from a lot of opportunities that would have been available to what I believe a person, if I were white, I think a lot of doors might have opened, but I don't match the costume, or my hair doesn't fit up in one of those darn hairnet things that people try and put on your freaking heads, and yeah.
It seems like there's not a whole lot of people of color within the industry, so I was really curious to ask Joe how he is trying to find more people of color to cast.
In terms of color, I'm trying my best. I don't have access to everyone, but like I said, I'm even doing the research on the social media networks, looking for artists of color, seeing who's following who, and I look at their pages, and once I see their pages and I see videos, I try to see if they have full links online, or I'll even write to them, be like, hey, I saw your stuff, I thought you looked great, just wondering if you would have something a full length anywhere. And sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't, and I can't help that. I'm not gonna irritate people, but I'm gonna make the effort, Because if I don't, I can't rely that other people will, because there's not enough voices speaking out about that, even in our world, which is a shame.
I also asked Gina why there aren't a lot of people of color in companies.
The reason, maybe, why your company does not see people of color, it might be because they don't see themselves represented in your community. Point blank, period. Are you reaching out to the Black community? The Black community is not the poor community. And we are not all like scraping for how are we going to get by? How are we going to survive? That's not it. So that narrative has to change as well. Before people start doing things where they're like, okay, well, how can I get more Black people in here? And then if your thought process goes to poor communities and giving money, that's not helping the problem, right? If you want to reach Black people, talk to Black people, go into Black communities, figure out what Black people do, and then go do that, not because you want their money, but because you want to get away from the divide that has been created since we as slaves were brought over, right? Like, that's the point. Do you want to get to know us, and do you want to treat us as equals?
I also asked if you have one person of color or a few people of color in your cast, how do you prevent tokenism?
How do you prevent tokenism? Well, it's an examination of, do you want it just for optics? You know, like you're putting the Black person in just to say that you did, or did you actually take time to think about it, about what this means and how can this push things forward? Because guess what? It's gonna look like tokenism no matter what. You're gonna get called out for it. That's inevitable. Whether you make that effort to make that conscious choice or not, from the audience perspective, if there's a show full of white people and there's one Black person, it's going to happen no matter what, that you're going to be called out for tokenism. How do you handle that conversation? Are you going to get defensive about it? Or are you going to actually let people know the steps you took to get there, but being really honest about it? You can even say, yeah, that was tokenism. What's somebody going to say about that? You know, like if someone admits, yeah, it was token. I mean, we didn't want to look bad. Admit it. That's okay. Don't think that it's cool, but it's okay to admit that you're wrong. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. That 1 second of discomfort saying I was wrong can just open the door. You know, when circus comes back up, and if we're all seeing the same thing again, this conversation is gonna get uglier.
I also wanted to know, what do they consider when casting?
That's what matters to me. Do you know how to, or are you capable of expressing yourself through this storyline that I've created? Right? Like, as long as you can tell a story, as long as you can use your body to emote, then that's what I'm looking for. Like, I care how their movement will complement my entire story that I've created. Can you help me tell the audience what I'm trying to say?
And Joe made this really great distinction between colorblind casting and color conscious casting, which he'll tell you all about here.
Diversity is visible, and diversity is also a throwaway word. It's representation, what we need now. Like, diversity is not something you tack on at the last second. Representation is built in from the beginning, and it's a conscious thing. People who say they're colorblind are the ones who are resistant to change because they don't see color. Challenge yourself and actually see color and deal with it. It's color consciousness that needs to be happening, not color blindness. Because if you're colorblind, you get to be colorblind, and we don't. You get to not see me. I want you to see us, because we're here and we're saying things. So do the work.
So Joe's show Filament was critiqued by a judge at a Fringe festival that his show wasn't diverse enough. And it was really interesting to hear Joe's response to that.
I'm not all right with that with myself. But that's why the new show is not going to be like that. I've taken a conscious effort to free things up a bit. You know, like when I write a story or when I imagine something, of course, there's a vision of my head of what it is, you know? I mean, that's what it was with Filament. I saw 4 boys and 4 girls, and their roles were very gender stereotyped and archetype, but that's also like what it was. It's an 80s inspired circus show. All those movies from the 80s are exactly that. And let's not talk about racism in those, like, that's another talk. But with this show, I tried to challenge myself in thinking, how can it work in a way that I'm not limited and different kinds of artists that I maybe have not imagined working with have a chance to be in something like this? And it's not like, oh, because I want to show them that I'm doing the important work. It's like, it would just make the show richer, because then it's not the same thing every time. Like, one of the hard things with Filament is that with whoever goes back into the show has to remain the same in terms of the stories and the context. They can bring in their own style and flavor because they bring in their own individual acts, and that changes the dynamic. And even how they act and interact with them, that changes. But it's still the same show. With a casting scheme that's very different, the show can be completely changed. It could retain the same heart and the same message, but in its message being transmitted and being received, it's going to be completely different. And it's scary, but I'm willing to try. I have 6 artists that I need. All of them can be any ethnicity, any size, any ability, but of the 6, only one is gender specific and only one is age specific. And that role is for a female over the age of 40. All the other roles can be any gender identity and any age. And so essentially you can have a show of 6 women, or you can have a show of 5 men and 1 woman, which I don't ever want because that's happened way too much.
So I'm really excited to see Joe's new show. I think the casting is really interesting and I better get tickets for it. And I can't wait till this whole pandemic is over so he can get that ball rolling. And Gina has a new creation coming up soon, which she will tell you all about.
I will feature my act Becoming. So I created this whole act based around trauma. And it's around my personal trauma that I dealt with throughout my childhood and my adolescence. And then my act Becoming is how I came out of that, like how we can come out on the other side of what other people put us through. So in August, we're going to put on a full-length show based around this act that I created.
And I asked them, how do they want to see change enacted within this industry?
Like, I'm telling you now, circus world, get it together. If you really want to be on the right side of things, be uncomfortable. We're used to being uncomfortable. We do circus, you know? That's our life. We're used to getting banged up and bruised and bleeding and injured and in casts. Having that moral discomfort is no different, because just like those injuries, you will heal. So do it now. Break that bone.
But also, out of all of this whole entire thing, I just want people to treat us equally. The only thing that Black people are asking for is to be treated equal to other people. I'm not like equal to Latinos or equal to Asians, equal to all people, equal, all across the board. The only thing we want is an equal opportunity. That's it. We want to know. And that's not that hard.
Joe and Gina just tell it like it is. And I just really appreciate them as artists and as amazing human beings. And it takes a lot of guts to start your own company. So they inspire me so much. And I bet they inspired all of you. So you should go follow them on all of their social media and support them on their creations and their projects. They're amazing. And you should definitely keep up with them. And comment down below. Let me know what you think about this series so far. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, because I honestly love hearing them. And I try to respond to every single comment as much as I can. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you think I'm pretty cool and you want to see more circus related videos, please subscribe and ring that bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!